This edition of Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by Tim, Allison Cook, Eric Hervin, and Super Inframan. If you want to learn how you can sponsor the show, go to wheredidtheroadgo.com. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? Tonight I have something a little different. We have two listener stories, both of them told by the actual listeners. So we're going to combine those into one show, and at the end I think I have some old stories, newspaper articles that I'm going to read that are pretty interesting to finish off the show. So our first guest on the show is David J. West, and this was going to be the majority of the show with David, talking about his experiences, and there's some really interesting stuff in here, so here we go. Tonight I'm talking with David J. West, and you're out in where, Utah?
Yep, I live in Utah County.
All right, and you are primarily a fiction writer.
Yep. I write weird westerns, fantasies, some sci-fi, some Twilight Zone type horror.
Okay. But you've been interested in the weird your whole life, and you've had a lot of personal experiences. Yeah,
it's something that's always been there.
So what's the earliest stuff you remember happening to you?
The earliest stuff that really ties this together, I think, is something I don't usually talk about, but I feel compelled to right now. I was 4 years old, and my 1-year-old brother passed away from SIDS. It's actually just like a couple days shy of his first birthday on the 4th of July.
Oh, man.
So the 4th of July is a bad day for my mom.
Yeah,
But I was 4. I considered him my best friend, and I was just inconsolable all summer long. My mom, I don't remember a lot of it, but my mom tells me I was just crying all the time. You know, they took me to the fair, and I'd cry on the Ferris wheel. And just continually. It must have been hell for my parents, on top of the grief for losing their child. And one night, I woke up and he was there. Now, the bizarre thing is, he was appearing to me like as a spirit and as a full-grown man. Huh. So he's lit up, and I just knew it was him. And we talked, and he explained to me that it was okay, that he had something to do, and that I'd see him again someday. And that put me at peace.
I'm sure.
And I got up in the morning, and I told my mom about it, and she wrote it all down. Everything that I told her, she wrote down in a journal, and that has helped me to remember, because otherwise I would only have a very fragmentary memory. Some of my memory's funny. I probably have memory based more on what I've been told since then. Sure. But, that opened me up for a whole new outlook on life, that there is something more. So I definitely consider myself very spiritual. Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's awesome that she had you write it down. I mean, I don't think most people would even think about that. I
couldn't write yet.
Well, no, but you have her, having her write it, or her writing it down for you, regardless, is something that most people wouldn't have done at that time, and that's fantastic. Because the thing is, memory is not reliable, especially when you go back that far.
Yeah, and I there was occasion when I'd be growing up, I'd tell somebody that I felt close to, and they'd be like, "Yeah, right." Right. I remember telling my 3rd grade teacher that I adored about it, and she's like, "Well, it was probably just a dream."
Right. Of course, it was.
And the thing is, I just don't believe it was, and I'm very reluctant to tell anybody that they haven't had this experience or that experience. I might not believe them, but it's made me treasure my own outlook and what that did for me, because that told me there was something more to the universe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, growing up, I've always had that love of everything. I think Fortean would be the best word I can think of. Any cryptids, UFOs. I've always been a fanatical reader. I think I've probably got about 6,000 or 7,000 books in the house right now. My office is. I've made my dream office. My dream office was inspired by Ray Bradbury. Used to have the half-hour-long show on HBO.
Yeah,
where the show would begin with him walking into his office, turning on the light, and saying, "This is where I do my work, and if I ever need inspiration, I just look around the room." And I'm like, "Oh, I want that."
Yeah,
understandable. And I've made that. So I've probably got pictures on Facebook and Twitter and things of my office, and people always like those, and those get a lot of likes because a lot of curios, a lot of things from around the world, a lot of weird stuff, and a whole lot of books.
Yeah, I guess that describes my house to some extent as well. Lots of books and lots of music.
Yeah, a lot of music too, although I've leaned more MP3 the last decade or so.
Mm. Yeah, I got tons of CDs, records, and tons of MP3s. I got them all.
Yeah, I have a trunk full of cassettes from when I was in the 80s as a teenager.
Yeah,
so this is a full trunk that now my 12-year-old daughter raids because she loves 80s music.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't let them touch the vinyl.
So what was your next experience along those lines?
I'm not sure where to go from there, other than saying that definitely pushed my world outlook. So I kind of got my notes here about different experiences because I've got more on ghosts, skinwalkers, things that might have been Bigfoot, might not have been. One of the weirdest things to me that I've never hardly talked about publicly with anyone was I thought I saw a gnome once.
Really?
Yeah, this would have been in 2003. I know I was doing construction, and I know I was riding with my boss. So I grew up in the Bitterroot Valley of Montana. It's a really nice place. And we were driving, 40-odd miles to the job, because in Montana, you got to drive a ways for something to do.
Yeah.
And he's driving. I'm looking out the window at the woods. And there's some small towns, and then there's big sections of pines. And I'm looking out the window, and in this big section, it's fenced off, but you can see all the pines. There's not much on the ground except for the needles and maybe a few broken branches. And I see something slumped up against the tree with a big red cap. Now, I would totally think this is a yard gnome, except the position is a little bit bigger than that, and I've never seen one made like this. Like, I've seen them made in lots of different ways, but never quite like this. And I'm like, that's too weird. Why would that be out here in the middle of nowhere? And they don't make them like that. And then when we came back later, it was gone. And, sometimes I'm like, did I see that wrong? But I really felt like,
yeah.
I know what I saw.
Yeah.
And if that could have been a prank, because I didn't go up and see that it was breathing or anything. We were driving past, but I felt like I distinctly saw it, and it was just so weird. Because normally anything with gnomes, I'm like, yeah, right.
Oh, sure. But I mean, that as much as anything else could be, we're dealing with a phenomena that morphs how it appears to us, I mean, why not?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were discussing memory and how you perception. And, another time I did construction in my 20s. And I was up on a roof, and I see something in the distance, and it's black, and it's warping, and it's half seen, then it's not seen, like it's cloaking, and half of it's not cloaking. I honestly thought I was seeing a UFO on the fritz with its cloaking mechanism on the fritz. And I lean next to my buddy, and I'm like, look at that. And he's like, oh, wow. We both instantly thought we were seeing a UFO with its cloaking mechanism on the fritz. Third buddy, look at that. And he's all, the flock of birds. And And then I could see it. And I'm like, damn it, I can't believe that fooled me. I can't believe that fooled me, because then I could see it. But in the moment, I was seeing a big black disc that was fading in and out. And it's like those dang starlings, the way they were all merging and turning together. It was kind of holding a saucerish shape with sky showing through in various points.
But that's exactly how our perception works. I mean, if we can't quite figure something out, it starts like applying things to it.
Yeah, and I wondered what that said about me, that I was immediately willing to believe that I was seeing a UFO. I'm like, should I be more discerning?
I don't think it's that you weren't being discerning. I think it was just an odd enough shape in an odd enough position that your brain didn't know what to make of it. Yeah,
and at least my buddy next to me thought he saw the same thing.
Right, exactly.
So one other UFO related thing was when I was a kid, and we're driving down a dark highway in the middle of nowhere. My parents are driving. I'm in the back seat. And they're all of a sudden, look at that. And this bright light is just zooming across the night sky. And then abruptly does a 90-degree turn coming back at us. And just super fast, bam, it's over the top of us. Never would have thought it was a UFO except the 90-degree turn. And we stopped. My mom and dad stopped the car, and we got out and looked. And the funny thing is, there was a sheriff behind us. He stopped right behind us. He saw it too. And there was another car that was right there that saw it. And so all these people saw it, and we're just like, what the heck was that? Because that's not possible
right.
with tech that we're aware of.
Yeah.
When it comes to what we're aware of, I think that gets pretty tricky, but
yeah, unfortunately.
This was the mid 80s, and
we still, that. Well, it's the mid 80s, and we still don't have anything like that now, and it's been quite a while. So
so it's like, wow, what was that? No discernible shape, just the light was doing that, and middle of nowhere, multiple witnesses, and we were just whoa.
Huh. All right. You said you had some ghost encounters too.
Yeah, I think the most interesting ones occurred in Georgia.
Were they all at the same place?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was a family friend's house, because I went with some really good friends on a cross-country trip to Georgia, because that's where their sister was. I hadn't met her yet, but I was, super close with the rest of the family. So we drove out to Georgia to stay at their place. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it wasn't too far from Athens or Atlanta. It was, in there in the suburbs. They had a really nice place kind of off by itself, surrounded by trees, a little off the beaten track. So it felt pretty rural. So it was a nice house. It couldn't have been very old. So that's one of the things that I didn't expect, is it wasn't a terribly old house. I'm thinking it had to have been built in the early 90s, late 80s, somewhere in there.
Oh, okay.
This was
so really new.
Yeah. So, not a house with history that you would think.
Yeah.
And they tell me that I get to stay in one of their boys' rooms. They just had little kids who are, definitely under 10, probably close to 5 or 6. Excuse me. And they said, you can stay in the boys' room. They don't like to sleep in there anyway. They always sleep in our room, with the parents. I'm like, okay, sure, great. They had cats, and I didn't want. I'm slightly allergic to cats if the cat hair gets by my eyes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I shut the door before I went to sleep that night. Made sure there was no cats in there. I didn't want to have one curl up next to me or get on my pillow. And, it's a very small rectangular room, really, with a bed and dresser, closet. It was kept immaculate, so there's nothing in there that you can't readily see and identify. And I go to sleep, and sometime in the night, I'm laying on my right side facing the wall. And I wake up because I feel something sit down on the bed right up next to the small of my back.
Been there.
And that totally makes me wake up.
Yeah.
And as I'm awake, all of a sudden I feel it get up. As if it totally felt like a person sat right there.
Right.
And then realizing that I'm awake, they get up and move. I flip over. There's enough, moonlight coming in the window. I can totally see in the dark. This is not a pitch black room. It's a deeper shade of gray. And there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
The door is shut. I thought someone was pulling a prank on me. I looked, at the closet under the bed because there's nowhere for anyone to hide. I thought, well, it must have been a cat. Maybe a cat got in and leapt up on the bed and then got up, because I'm trying to rationalize this. And, there's no cat in this room. And I'm not scared, but I'm unnerved.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's weird. I'm going to go sleep in the van. So I get up to go out to the van in the driveway. Bright moonlight is, painting everything that, that bright gray.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a comfy van. I'm cool sleeping in the van. I get in the van and I lay down in my sleeping bag and something rocks the van. I get up, look out the windows, jump out the door, run around right there in their driveway. There's nowhere anyone could have hidden. There is nowhere anyone could have done that and then gotten away before I could see them. I look around the van, I look around the driveway. There's trees there, but there's nothing big enough for a person to hide behind. And I'm like, what the heck? I get back in and I try to shake the van myself from the inside. I can't recreate it. So it was not me just, settling down on the seat and rocking the van a little bit. It was I could not do the same motion inside the van. I could not do it. I lay down. And, all right, I'm going to go to sleep. This is weird. I'm going to sleep. And I hear something. After I'm laying there for a minute, I don't know. I hear something coming. The closest thing I can say it's like is from the Evil Dead Army of Darkness. The
okay.
That's the closest thing I can say it was like, because I felt like I could hear it coming. And I felt like I could hear it coming, and it came into the van and got right up to my face, and it's like I had a big puff of air hit me in the face. And I'm like, all right, that's it. You're trying to scare me. I'm not scared. I'm just annoyed. Leave me alone. And it all went away. And I came away from the conclusion I didn't think it was a demon. I felt like I think it was a ghost that was a trickster and liked messing with me. Because I didn't think it was malevolent. I honestly came away thinking it just wanted to mess with me.
Right.
And I felt bad. I didn't say anything to the family that lived there. While the rest of the time we were there for a few days. And I never had another experience while we were there. And then after we had left and we were coming back out west, I talked to, my friend who was the girl's brother. And I said, did you have any experiences there? Anything I didn't want to insult him that his family's house was haunted or anything. I was trying to tiptoe around it. And he's like, well, because he slept in the room opposite me by himself. And he told me there was really a weird scratching in the walls, but that's it. I can't explain why there would be scratching in the walls, but there was a really weird scratching in the walls. And I'm like, all right, close enough. That's ghostly.
And that you can throw down to mice though too, if you really want to.
Yeah, you never know. I felt like it tied into my experience, but there's nothing conclusive with any of that. And it's one of those things where the experience is for you. And you know what you went through. And, I try to be objective enough to go, okay, I was fooled sometimes. I was fooled with that stupid bird UFO thing.
Well, sure, yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, no, I didn't lay down in the van and accidentally rock it back and forth myself. I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't do that. And then I felt that puff of wind in a sealed up vehicle.
Yeah. I had a non-paranormal scratching incident where I kept hearing scratching coming from the pretty much my library room, and I'm like, what is that? And I'd go into the room and it would stop, and I'm like, okay. And I'd come back out of the room and it would start, I'd hear scratching again, and I'm like, all right, what's going on? And so I very quietly tiptoed back in, and I'm thinking mouse. I'm thinking there's a mouse somewhere. There's a couple of boxes on the table. Maybe the mouse is in one of the boxes. So as soon as I start going through one of the boxes, everything stops, and I'm like, all right, well, it's not in this box. It must be in the box under it, because I could tell it was coming from these boxes. Mm-hmm. So the box is already mostly sealed, like the cover's flaps down. So I seal the flaps on it. I take the other box off, and while holding it, I'm like, I'll take it way out back and let it out. And I go to pick it up. I'm like, that's one heavy mouse. Then I open the box, and my cat's in there and unable to get out. But it starts off with one of those, what is that? That's not right. What's that noise?
I'm a night owl. And
as am I.
I stay up late writing a lot of the time when the house is all quiet. Everybody's gone to sleep. And just yesterday, I hear something really late making a weird sound in the other room. And so I get up from my chair in the office and I start creeping through the living room to figure out, what is that sound? My wife had turned on her printer to print something out because she woke up in the night and decided, I'm going to need this for work tomorrow. And so she just printed it out in her office. But the sound carried really weird through the house, and I never expect her to be getting up and doing that.
But it doesn't take much sometimes for things to sound weird under the right circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are the weird sounds which definitely have no good explanation.
Yeah. I'm not thinking that the problem is sometimes there's not anything more to tell. Then every great once in a while, you hear a voice.
Yes.
You might hear your name, and that's it. And there's nothing more for me to tell, so it's not really a story.
Yeah.
But it's an experience that makes you go, okay, I'm listening.
I've had times where I've put down the phone, and when I come back, the person on the other end goes, some woman just said your name into the phone. Well,
then, all right. Do they say Seriah or your other name?
No, they say Seriah.
Okay. So they're acknowledging that. That's good.
And, it's but again, it's not a story. It's a singular event. It wasn't surrounded by anything. It was just kind of a weird, okay, this has happened before,
Yeah, I never had the word, until your show about it, the premonition sounds. I'm mixing up the Nordic word.
Oh, Vardiger.
Yeah, I think I've had that happen a couple of times, but it's so bizarre that I'm like, did I hear that? No, I couldn't have heard that, but I did hear that. Oh, my wife isn't home yet. Not a story, but...
Yeah, and it's one of those things where some of us may have experienced that without ever acknowledging it. Like you heard something, you think, oh, they must be home. Nope. Okay. And it doesn't register as, oh, that was weird.
Yeah, and it's like, I didn't know there was a word for it until that episode.
Yeah. And she had approached me and said, have you ever done a show on this? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. Yeah.
It's glad to know that sometimes other languages have words for things.
Yes, yeah.
My mom is Lithuanian, and she told me that there's a Lithuanian word for how a cat half winks.
Huh.
And I'm like, well, what would that be in English? And she's like, there is no word in English for that.
Interesting. All right, well, let's get back to weird stories. What else is on your list?
I live in Utah. I've lived about half my life in Montana, half in Utah, a couple other places, LA for a little while when I got remarried. But I'm very familiar with Utah now. I've camped everywhere in the state. I've been all over the place. And because, we touch on the Four Corners, I've been down in that area quite a bit, camping, and I base a lot of my weird Westerns out of there. And so I'm fascinated with Skinwalkers. Mm-hmm. And anytime I am able to talk to somebody about a skinwalker, I hit them up for it. So I've really enjoyed collecting skinwalker stories, even if I haven't experienced them. So if that's cool with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So my wife, before we ever got married, was driving from Phoenix up to Page, Arizona, and middle of the night, lonely road. I think she tried to take some shortcut. And she says in the middle of the night, a giant black wolf ran across the road in front of her.
Oh.
Freaked her out. That's all she saw, giant black wolf. She's like, was not a dog.
Right.
And so she thought that the only thing she could think of was Skinwalker. And just freaked her out. She was really scared, but she just kept driving, did not slow down, did not look back or anything. But I've gone camping out there, and there's been some weird feelings sometimes out there. And I really enjoyed being able to talk to mostly people that are Dene or Navajo from out there. And the one experience I had for me was I was living in a town called Red Mesa. And it's actually Colorado, but right above the New Mexico line, just above... I am spacing the name now that I want to say it. It's really close to Shiprock, which is the famous big rock down there.
Okay.
And I wish when I was down there that I had been able to know J.C. Johnson, because I didn't get to be friends with him until Facebook, which was a couple years later.
Yeah.
And I'm riding late at night, middle of the night, and I think I hear something outside. And there had been occasion where badgers had tried to get our cats on the porch, and I'd had to shoo them off. But, this just sounded like something eerie, like a whistle. And I step out on the porch. It's pitch black outside. And way off in the distance, I hear a pipe going. Someone is playing like a Native American type flute. And I felt really compelled to just walk out into the dark and try to find it. I felt really compelled that I need to go find that. And then, another part of me was like, what? No, you're not going to just walk out into the dark. The wife is sleeping, the baby is sleeping. No, stay home. Yeah. So I listened for a little while and was just weirded out and went back inside. That could have been anything. That could have been anybody just off playing their recorder at one of the ranches, a mile away for all I know. But the compulsion that I felt made me think there was something else to it.
That's understandable, yeah.
And again, that's just a gut feeling. There's nothing you can really show anyone else.
Isn't that how one of Lovecraft's stories starts?
It could be, because I'm a big fan of Lovecraft, and especially Robert E. Howard. Conan is my jam. That's the type of fantasy I write, is more along the Conan line.
Cool.
So I love all that pulpy stuff. Excuse me. And so I just like, wow, where did that compulsion come from? Because I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. I'm not going to just walk out in the dark.
Yeah.
So I asked some Dene people that I've met about skinwalkers if they'll talk about it. And, they'll usually talk about it when they're far enough away up in Utah towards Salt Lake and not down in the Four Corners. And a great story that a guy told me was how I was working at a psych hospital for just a little while, and he was in there for rehab, because we also did rehab. That's where I was usually at. And I knew he was Dene, and I said, hey, if you feel like talking about it, will you tell me any skinwalker stories you have? And he's like, yeah, let me think about that. And the next day, he had written out like 10 pages of his life story that he gave to me. And I was fascinated and grateful that he did that. And he said, thank you for making me think about this, because it's making me connect with my heritage a little bit more, because I'd been forgetting about that and just throwing myself into alcohol. And this is making me think about what I need to do to stay sober. So I'm like, great. I wasn't doing that because, we tried to be friendly, when we're taking care of people there. But, so his story started out when he was a boy. His mother died and his father remarried, and they had a family where she already had kids and he had his two brothers, and the stepmom had to take care of all the kids, but she didn't like the stepkids and complained and eventually told the dad, hey, send them away for a while, So him and his brother got sent to the grandpa's cabin that was way out in the middle of nowhere. And they had to just kind of live there, even though they were only like, I want to say 10 and 12, by themselves for a week at a time. And one night, they start hearing scratching at the door. And then something's running up and over the roof. And all the classic Skinwalker stuff you've heard before. And they wouldn't open the door. And the next time their grandfather came out, they told him what happened. And he's like, okay, we're going to have to go through all the measures to try and keep this place safe. Because apparently his grandfather was some kind of medicine man. And that was what he was really grateful to me for saying, remember this and tell me about it, because he said his grandfather would heal people. And one of the stories he said that he got to do was he went with him once to go help this couple that was out in the middle of nowhere that were having a lot of problems. Like they just had been having bad luck. They were fighting, and he had almost the husband had almost gotten killed in a really bad truck wreck. So the grandfather comes out there with them to check it out. And, he did the smoke sage thing and his eagle feather, and he kind of walked around the house 3 times. And then he walked around the truck doing the same thing. And he's looking over this wrecked truck, and he reaches up under the dashboard and finds a little dried out fish. I got the impression that he was telling me it was like one of those tins, the anchovy type things.
Oh, okay.
Just tiny, but there's no way a fish should have been up in the dash like that, because you're not usually driving through anything that's gonna get you a fish down there.
Right.
And he said that the fish was part of a bad spell made to make the husband wreck his truck and perhaps die.
Huh.
And I was like, wow. And then he went in, and they were always arguing in the house. And he made the woman tell a story about what's happened here, what's been different, what's changed. And she said, well, one time this dog came into the house, and we didn't know why. It just walked in, and we eventually chased it out, and it just left. But it came in like it owned the place and then just left. And they went and discovered behind the water heater there was this other little fetish thing, like some kind of feather and something wrapped up in the bundle. And they determined that that dog that had come in was a skinwalker, and it had left this thing in their house that caused them to fight. And so this all tied into eventually that someone had cursed them because they wanted the husband to die so that someone could get the woman. And I thought that was really interesting that I was hearing it directly from this guy, because that seemed to line up with a lot of stuff that J.C. Johnson and Leonard Dan would say about skinwalkers, because I really loved talking with J.C. whenever I had the chance. And I just thought, wow, that fits, but it's completely independent of anything they've ever said.
Huh.
So I just love that. I did intend to go out to Skinwalker Ranch in the late 90s when I first heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
Me and a buddy were like, let's get all of our gear. Let's go check it out. And we happened to bump into Clyde Lewis when we were talking about that. And he's like, no way, do not go.
Huh.
So Clyde used to be based out of Salt Lake. And I had talked to him a few times, and so we bumped into him at the mall. This was shortly before he went to Portland, and he's like, "Do not go there. Do not do that." We're like, all right, we won't. But it's like, that impetuous youth attitude of wanting to go check it out.
No, that's totally understandable.
Because, it's in my relative backyard. I really liked the book. Was very underwhelmed with the recent documentary.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I've been sent some videos from YouTube and stuff lately of people talking about how they think some of the stuff done there was psyop work on them, some of the people who worked there. But not that there wasn't weird stuff going on, but that it wasn't only weird stuff, that they were also experimenting on them in the midst of this weird stuff.
At this point, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah, I don't know how valid it is yet. I want to do a show on it eventually. A few people have written me and asked me what that was about, and that's, if you look around, you can find some YouTubes of people talking about this, some of the people who actually worked on the ranch. And they have serious suspicions of what was actually being done to them.
Yeah, that was something I wondered when I first started reading about all the stuff from Point Pleasant way back when. It's like I went into it thinking, it must have been a CIA op. They must have been testing LSD in the water. But then the more I read it, the more I'm like, okay, that doesn't fit either.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I think the government gets its hands into a lot of this stuff. Never give up a good opportunity to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all the old testing that they've done proves that. And
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I like I said, I got to do more research on it. I think people are upset that I've even mentioned it might not be totally legit, because it's something that really inspired me. I mean, I thought it was utterly fascinating when I read it. Where was that comment I had? They were talking about hoping we would comment on the history of the area. And yeah, the area itself is very strange. I mean, it has weird history going all the way back, that whole basin. And it's not that weird stuff didn't happen there. It's that some of the stuff in the Skinwalker book may have been not what it seemed, I get the impression I'm starting to get. Not that the area isn't a very powerful area, because it is, but that might have been why they were doing those experiments there at that time.
Yeah, I like I said, nothing would surprise me at this point, because there's so much weird stuff happens. I've been out in the desert and just felt a presence, and you're in a place where you can see all around you. It's strange, but sometimes it's just a feeling, and what makes this feeling different than another feeling? How do you feel that something left? And that's kind of why I opened with the story about my brother, because that did open me up, since I was very young, on there is something more to this life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like all my life I've wanted answers. That's probably why I read so much. And, sometimes it's like something might open where you think, I think I've got this figured out. But then a dozen more questions tumble out somewhere else.
And I think that's how it's meant to be. I don't know that we'll ever get exactly all the answers. I think when we solve things, we just get better questions.
Yeah, that's one reason I've gotten such a kick out of a lot of Walter Bosley's comments lately, because he's really bashing on the disclosure thing, and that makes me smile.
The disclosure thing is just a cycle. It comes around every once in a while, and I mean, if you haven't been through it a few times, it sounds really good and really, here we go. But it's like, that's the same old thing.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, we'll see.
I'll totally eat my words if it's not. I mean, that's fine, but so far it hasn't proved. The To the Stars thing has not presented anything truly phenomenal.
Yeah, and for me, it's the follow the money trail. So
yeah, unfortunately. So do you have any other experiences?
Things that I was always fascinated with Bigfoot since I was a kid.
All right, you mentioned Bigfoot.
And cryptids. I always loved the idea of cryptids. I wanted to know about cryptids. I wanted to see cryptids, and never saw anything. And now that I've gotten a little bit older and the beauty of the internet and podcasts, I can catch up and hear all these other people's experiences. And that's made me reevaluate things from when I was younger that never had a good explanation. And I'm like, could that be something? Because I used to go up camping up really close to where I live now, but way up a canyon called American Fork Canyon. And there's the Alpine Loop, and we would go up on top of there in the evening in the summertime and park up towards the top and then just hike, maybe quarter mile, half mile, find a good spot, make a campfire. Everybody sits around the campfire, talks, has a good old time. Good, clean Mormon fun.
Right.
We're sitting around a fire. It's late at night. We are far enough away from the road that we can't even see headlights or anything. So no one can see our fire either. And while maybe someone could see our cars beside the road, in my mind, who is possibly going to walk through the dark woods at night looking for people?
Right.
So we're sitting around the fire, and after we've been there, the fire's starting to die down, and something is throwing little pebbles at us. Like, what the heck? Somebody's messing with us, and we're bold young bucks. We get up and we charge out into the woods trying to see what's doing it. Can't find a thing. Don't hear anything. Don't see anything. Nothing. But something was throwing little pebbles at us. I always thought it was people messing with me. And I'm like, wow, my hat's off to them for how stealthy they are, how well they can move through the woods. When me and my buddies, we just randomly charge out into the woods. We're making a ruckus. How are we not hearing anybody else running away? It dumbfounded me. I'm like, they're ninjas. We thought we were good. Those guys are ninjas. Fast forward 20 years, I'm listening to all the Bigfoot shows, and I'm like, wait a second. What was that? And then, going on YouTube, and, stuff might be fake, but there's been some sightings local to me that are interesting up the canyons by me. There was a guy that had a story that up the very same canyon I was at, that he got chased by something and fell down and broke his arm. That was the same canyon. And then the next canyon over, some guys had some YouTube video of something peeking around a tree that when they went back the next day, did a size comparison with a tall, like 6.5 foot tall friend. This thing was like a foot taller than their friend. So, it was fuzzy. You couldn't see real good, but if it was a hoax, it was a good hoax.
Right.
And then almost a year ago exactly, there was a guy that had some footage of what looked like a Bigfoot standing on a ridge, not 5-10 miles from my house. And it looked really good. And I think some of the BFRO guys went up there afterwards and they found some tracks in the snow. So if it was a hoax, it was a very dedicated hoax.
Yeah, yeah. What do you make of Bigfoot? What do you think it is?
Well, when I was a kid, I really subscribed to it's a big, smart ape.
Right.
And this is totally based off me just listening to everything, and I read. I no longer think that. I'm more in the camp that there's something special, something weird, because I think if it was just an ape, we would have gotten one by now. I think all the really strange out there stuff, orbs, what have you, the vanishing in the middle of nowhere stuff, I think there's something elemental to it that I'm fascinated with. And again, it's the trickster comes up. What the heck is this? Why am I following tracks that suddenly dead end? Even if that thing can jump, like nobody's business, I don't know where it would go. And and then at the same time, I'm not convinced by footage like Todd Standings either. That it doesn't ring true to me. But
I haven't seen that.
They had one of his docs on Netflix that I caught.
Okay.
But I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but it didn't ring true to me. Just my opinion. So
And like I presented a long time ago, a lot of this stuff is poltergeist phenomena. I mean, especially when you're not seeing an actual creature, like the rocks being thrown at you. That's totally poltergeist phenomena.
Yeah, I have no explanation. It was... I think all of us were in our late teens or very early 20s, so it's not exactly the poltergeist, young female, but we had some young girls with us. I think they were probably 17 or 18. I don't know.
But if you're also in an area that's conductive to that type of energy?
Yeah, I that's what I wonder about Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. And that's what I wonder about when they say they're experimenting. Are they trying to bring out that energy more?
I'm very open to that possibility. I'm very open that there's manipulations and what do you call them, ley lines or telluric currents that might have stronger possibilities for opening doors. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of factors that influence this stuff. I mean, like you mentioned the young girls, that's obviously a factor because instead of like acting out, it's coming out as poltergeist phenomena when they're upset and, in a bad situation or whatever. And that's well documented.
Right.
But there's also environmental factors, and there's other factors. People I know who are not, who are older, who have had poltergeist effects. It's usually when there's an emotional thing going on. Right. Emotions bring this stuff out. So it's not just, being out in the woods in an area that might already have some energy, being teenagers, and it may have been enough to generate a small poltergeist, who threw some rocks at you.
It was definitely strange, regardless of what it was. Yeah. So,
and the thing is, people get upset when I say that because they're like, "So you're saying there's no other?" And it's like there might be an other, but I think
lots of other.
But some of it's certainly us. And if it is us, what does that say about what we are and what we don't know we can do?
Well, that's another fascinating thing to me because I have a talent for being able to attract things. But it's almost like it's something small that I'm more able to grasp as possible. Like I want a certain book and I'll suddenly feel compelled to stop and I go into this used bookshop and I find the one I want.
Yeah.
Wasn't there before, but it's there now.
Right.
My wife loses things constantly and she's like, "Will you find this?" And I'm like... it doesn't work like that. And she's like, "Yes, it does." And then I will just somehow just zero in right on something bizarre. And she's like, "Use your attraction powers to get more money," And I was like, "I can't." And I think it's my own shortcoming. It's my own shortcoming to not be able to say, "Hey, I want to be a New York Times bestseller." I can't I can't will that, but these little things that seem totally possible, I can just bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. And I've totally had that happen before.
Yeah, it's enough. It happens often enough that my wife teases me about it that I can do any of that. And I do think there's power of mind over matter. I definitely think there's something with the will where we can make our own reality better or worse. I like the quote that worries are a prayer for things you don't want. I can't remember who said that.
Oh, that's great.
And so I definitely try to have a positive outlook and think, "Oh, how can I do this better? How can I find that?" But when it comes to getting really big, can't quite cross that hurdle.
Yeah. Well, it might not be on your path,
I've wondered that too. Because I feel really blessed that I can have a creative outlook, that I can write my stories. Because if I could do a quick plug, I made my own little bio that says David J. West writes dark fantasy and weird westerns because the voices in his head won't quiet until someone else can hear them. He's a great fan of sword and sorcery, ghosts, and lost ruins. So, of course, he lives in Utah with his wife and children.
That's fantastic.
Because I was trying to think of, why do I write? And I love my own books. I hope other people will like them. It's adventure pulpy stuff. And
did we go through all the weird stories? Do you have?
That's kind of what I had on notes in front of me. There's always more things that I forgot.
Oh, sure. But before, because I want to get into your fiction stuff too. I just wanted to make sure we were done with that.
That's everything I put on the notes in front of me, and it's one of those things where we'll get off, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I should have said this."
So, as far as your fiction goes, have you? I know you said you write under a pen name.
Yeah, it's not with James Alderdice because I thought it was a good fantasy name, and it's my dad's name and my grandmother's maternal maiden name.
Oh,
so I actually am a blood Alderdice.
Do you want to spell that?
It's ALDERDICE. Alder.
Okay.
And Dice. And I write very Conan-esque type fantasy fiction under that name, and that stuff's actually outselling my weird westerns and my Twilight Zone-y type horror, because I started off writing some historical adventure stories, and then I started doing a lot of short stories because I listened to things like Stephen King's On Writing, and I thought, if I do a lot of short stories, I'll get my name out there, and I put them in all these other little markets, and the market is not like it was way back when you could do that. It's changed, and so writing a bunch of little short stories I enjoyed it, but it didn't really boost my name. And then we started having the ebook revolution, and so I've been traditionally published, but I do a lot of self-publishing now just because I can market it myself and put it out there faster, because I'm an impatient person.
That's understandable. It takes forever to get published.
Yeah, so it's like I still have some traditional contracts, but I do 10 times the work doing some selfie stuff.
Nice. So some of it's some of it's under your real name and some of it's under the pen name.
Yeah, it'd be David J. West or James Alderdice.
Okay. And how much? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I'll write a bunch of weird westerns, utilizing places I've actually been, around the Four Corners area, and throwing in some weird stuff that I've heard and just kind of mixing it in for an adventure, because I like to mix some of the weird with entertainment.
So when you say weird, do you mean like Fortiana based westerns?
Yeah, weird westerns. I've loved reading up on weird legends and making a cowboy come across a lost city or something.
Oh, nice. Okay. Every time we say Twilight Zone, it takes a second for the second word to kick in. I'm like, not Twilight, like, okay.
No, not me. I said that because eventually I collected a bunch of my weird fiction stories into a book that it's an anthology with all my stories. So I titled it Weird Tales of Horror. And I had a review where somebody said it's like a season of the Twilight Zone in a book. Nice. And I'm like, I didn't know how to pimp this book yet, but now I'll tell people that whenever I'm doing the local conventions.
Yeah, no, that's a great compliment.
Yeah, so because I feel like I loved Twilight Zone when I was a kid. That's closer to my milieu than slasher stuff.
Yeah,
just to differentiate the genre.
Yeah, there's the occasional slasher film or story that's fine, but I find that stuff to be not overly creative, except sometimes in the way that people are killed. Whereas the Twilight Zone, the weird stuff, that's far more what I'm interested in. I want something to make me think about something differently. Yeah.
So I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed just the suspense and the atmosphere rather than a jump scare.
Yes,
jump scares are hard in a book anyway.
True. What? How many full books do you have?
Oh boy, I've lost track. I probably have I've probably got about 10 under James Alderdice, and there's probably at least 20 titles under David J. West.
Wow. Okay.
I try to be prolific with pulp.
Yeah, obviously. And you do conventions and stuff?
Yeah, I'm always a guest at local things. I've been a guest at Seattle's Comic-Con, Denver's, Salt Lake's, of course. Some of the smaller ones around Idaho have been really great, actually. I've enjoyed a lot of the small, intimate ones more than some of the big, huge ones.
That makes sense. Huh. What's your latest book?
The latest thing I released was right before Christmas. It's called Fury, and it's kind of my sword and sorcery take on Beowulf if Grendel was a T-Rex.
Huh.
Because I got fascinated with some thread I found on the internet years ago where some guy was a guy that was pushing the whole dinosaurs didn't die out until the Dark Ages type thing.
Right. And
he pushed all this evidence on why Grendel could be a T-Rex. And I'm like, come on, it's a troll. You know, I read Beowulf. I read some kind of abridged kids Beowulf when I was in like the first grade. I was a weird kid. And but I got Seamus Heaney's where he's got the Old English side by side with his translation. And so I started going back through it and comparing everything that describes Grendel and then also describes the dragon in the end. And a bunch of the words were the same. Now, granted, Grendel walks on two legs and he kills with his mouth. And then Beowulf tears off the arm and shoulder. And, you know, he lives in this swamp and there's other reptiles in there. And the way I started thinking, I'm like, wow, I've always interpreted it like a troll, but it could be like a T-Rex.
Huh.
I'm going to go write that as a Conan type tale. So that came out right before Christmas.
Nice. Is it ebook only, or do you have print books as well?
Ebook and print. You know, I sell a lot more ebooks, but I make print because I want print.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I always find print. I mean, ebooks are nice, especially if you need to search for something in them. I won't say that's not a bad thing to be able to just kind of like, oh, where's this phrase? There it is. Okay, there's the chapter on that, rather than having to flip through a bibliography that may or may not note it or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I get it.
So, all right, can people find you online?
Oh yeah, I've got the www.jamesalderdice.com. For me, I have the wdavid/j/west blogspot. I'm on Facebook. I'm really active more on Twitter.
Okay.
I just enjoy the format. But yeah, I'm out there.
All right. Well, thank you for spending some time with us and talking about all this stuff.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I would like to thank my awesome Patreons for all their support and all their help, and for continuing to help me make Where Did the Road Go a thing. So I would especially like to thank those of you pledging $10 or more: Tim, Allison Cook, Eric Hervin, Super Inframan, Rob Drummond, Alex Whitcomb, Nadine, Damian Tallman, Edu Camahort, Luke Osborne, Tactical Therapist, Janet Bunderson, 36 Dingo, Maria, Jennifer Campbell, American Rambler, Kevin, John Rutledge Foster, Eric Citron, Andy McNamara, Sasha Jorg, Matthias Sunby, Dominic O'Malley, Christopher Vaughn, Riker and Stark, Sean Cosgrove, Jose A., Roger Gonzalez, Craig Cicernos, Lindsey Jackson K., Alfred Tuttle, Kevin Schreck, Patricia Giaquinta, William Lovelace, Mark Brady, Chris is a hot dog a sandwich, and Carla Mahoney. Thank you all so very, very much. Tonight I am talking with James Lattiemore. How are you doing, James?
Very good.
And you had written me because you had a UFO experience, but you've had a few things happen to you, right?
Well, basically, I had and he also had not really experience, but I had an opportunity to talk to a retired Air Force intelligence person and former NSA person.
Hmm. Well, let's talk the UFO thing first, and then we'll get into that.
Okay.
So what happened?
Well, from the beginning, this happened way back in I'm 62. Okay. So this happened in 1964. Me and my mother, father, back in those times, we was watching the 1964 Democratic National Convention on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, it wasn't but three, 4 channels. So
right.
That was exciting back in those days. And I believe it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It was during the last week in August, 1964. My sister had came over. She just recently got married in June of '64. My mother had asked my sister, and her husband to, it was a restaurant down the street. My mother asked her she go down to the restaurant and get something to eat. She did, and my sister left. My father had took out the trash. We had an incinerator out in the backyard. We live in a house that was converted. It was a single family house one time, but it was converted to apartments.
Right.
We lived on the side, and the side is out. We go out the side to the trash incinerator. My father had went out, dumped the trash, and me, my mother, and I was inside watching the TV. Heard my father cry out to my mother, tell her to come here for a moment, and hear the inflection in his voice that it was something important. So we both went outside to the backyard where he was. And he said, "Look." And we looked behind us, and it was levitating disc, tree top level, no more than 100. It was hard to judge distance, but it was very close.
Right.
And it wasn't like these people report. You see these lights in the sky twinkling. Well, this is the top of the trees. You can see what it was, and it's been 50 plus years now since this happened. But I still remember like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing I remember, it wasn't spinning. It was just, it was moving, and we wasn't afraid. It's these extraordinary things, and people said they'd be afraid. We wasn't afraid. We just dumbstruck of something, seeing something that was supposed to be impossible. Well, it didn't exist. Wasn't supposed to exist.
Right.
And the main thing I remember about it was, it wasn't spinning. It was a disc, metal. And the main thing I remember is that it had windows. It had the dome on top. The dome on top had windows. That I remember. And it was lit from the inside. Like the light was coming from the inside. You could look inside. Well, we didn't see anything, but it was lit from the inside. And I remember telling my mother that maybe we see somebody pass by, because it was lit, like it was a hallway. It was like into a hallway or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't see anything. We didn't see any ETs or creatures, but what we did see was a levitating craft. The whole experience lasted about 6 or 7 minutes. And it disappeared behind the buildings. And it had lights on the sides, on the rim, white lights. And while this was happening, I was waiting for the sirens to be coming in this direction.
Right.
It's like, this is Cleveland, Ohio, 1964. It's like people walking down the street. It's like on the 8:30 at night in August. And I was expecting this. It was it couldn't be missed. It was big as a house.
Right.
And it was just me, my mother, father outside. We was in the backyard, and usually during this time of the evening, people walking up down the street, cars going up down the street, and I didn't hear anybody walking down. I didn't hear any cars. I was expecting to hear sirens, but this is an invasion. I mean, it's not. Well, it's an invasion in the extent that you got this craft right above the house,
Right.
and I could throw a rock and hit it, and I don't hear any clamor, people screaming, and it was none of that. And we saw it disappear between the buildings, and like most stories I hear, like people just, we just go back in the house and like nothing had happened.
Mm-hmm.
This whole experience lasted about, I guess, 7 minutes. We saw it for about 5-7 minutes until it disappeared. We went back in the house. My sister came back from the restaurant. It was about 15 minutes away. And we asked her, "Did you see that?" And she asked me, "Did you see what?" The flying saucer. Nope. And she never really believed that even though it was 3 of us, she never really believed that it was we thought it was a joke or something. She
Right.
never did it. Okay, what was fascinating, besides the fact that one thing he told me was like anti-gravity technology exists. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Either from us or whoever, back in 1964, it was levitating over the ground. Also, nobody else saw it. That's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And it's to all my friends and through the years, and if you don't see, it's like if you never had experience to see something like that, people don't believe you.
Right.
You don't care how truthful or you might be. That's impossible. You didn't see that. That's impossible. So I just stopped trying to have people to believe me. I just tell them the story. This happened to me. This would happen, and my mother was there. My father was there, and had friends come over. And both my mother and father passed away, but when they was alive, I used to have them, verify. Did you see this? And they say, yeah, we saw it. We all saw it, and it was just crazy. The crazy that nobody saw it. It was like it was meant just for us to see.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of times how it feels.
And the fact that anti-gravity or whatever they call it exists. Like I said, I didn't see any aliens, no ETs walking around. But seeing things that we've been told all these years don't exist, and how we've been lied to all these years about that's anti-gravity is something that does not exist.
Now, was that the only?
Like Richard Dolan used to say, you go ahead.
Is that the only UFO experience you've had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I haven't really had any other ones that I can remember. That leads me into this other what's Air Force intelligence person.
Yeah.
I met on I work for the government, post office,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a certified. He had something he had to sign for, and I went to his house. And he had an NSA emblem in his room,
Hmm.
and I said, "NSA as a national security agency." He said, "Yes." But before he used to be major. He was a major in the Air Force. Then he went to Air Force Intelligence and NSA, and somehow UFO subject came up. And I told him I had a like I'm telling you, I had a UFO experience. I told him about it. He said, "Do you have it? Did you remember having any missing time?" I said, "Nope." Just because you don't remember it, don't mean it didn't happen. But But he had told me a couple things. I don't know if you want me to say that now or not.
Hmm?
Oh, okay. He had told me that one of the things that he used to do, he went to an underground laboratory. He didn't tell me where it was. This is before I knew anything about Dulce.
Mm-hmm.
Dulce, New Mexico.
Yep.
And, he said he went to an underground base where he just basically told me what that poster had been. The tales we have heard about that place.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say that where it was, but he told me that he'd been there. He said that the things that we have been told went on there, he verified that from his first-hand experience that it's real. And when I learned about those, I said, I heard about this before. That sounds very familiar. And but no, I don't remember having any missing time from that my experience. I have any experience of missing time or seeing the aliens, but seeing something that does, being told that doesn't exist.
Yeah. And you said it got very quiet when you saw this, right?
Yeah, it's clearly how it is. It's in the summer. It's in August.
Mm-hmm.
Nighttime is warm, and usually there's a lot of hustle and bustle down the street. Like I said, we was in the backyard, but still, this thing is over the house. I could have threw a rock and hit it. You see exactly what it was. There was no swamp gas. Okay,
right.
And it got quiet because I was expecting to hear sirens, the police coming, because it's lit up. It's over the house, and it should be plenty of people walking down the street.
And that's one of the weird things about this stuff. Like what you're describing with the silence is almost that Oz factor that Jenny Randles has talked about, where like you get that unusual silence when there shouldn't be, and it sort of feels out of place.
Yes, I can't explain it to this day. Because my sister, even though she wasn't with us, she was walking down the street. She wasn't that far away.
She should have been able to see it.
Yes. And she did not. And it just seems as though that this is my opinion on what happened. Somehow they're able to control what we see, and probably they always up there all the time. We just can't see them. Dimensional or whatever the technology that they have, they're able to do things that we can't see.
Yeah.
Because like I had mentioned about Richard Dawkins and his Breakaway Civilization, is them, and they had a type of technology in '64. Just imagine what they have today.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, I'm not saying that this is some flying saucers from who knows where, but the fact that we saw it, it did what it did, and we can't repeat what it did today.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can mass their flying machines, some other people, and just have certain people they want to see them, and that's scary in itself right there.
It definitely is. Because it suggests a level of control that we're just not familiar with.
Exactly. And that leads into David Pilates' 411 disappearances. If they can be hidden from our sight, and they can just do things beyond our understanding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're not accountable for it.
No. scot free. You know, with that that type of technology, it's like gods. And the fact that, you know, overwhelming technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because I never had any other experience, but that was more than enough.
I bet. It stuck with you all this time, so.
Yeah, because it happened like when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'm 62 now, so remember every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my mother and father have passed away now, but I'm the last one. And it's just something that, because I listened to your program and other programs, and how you got these debunkers saying, no, that's not possible. Those don't exist. Well, I know for a fact, this is firsthand. I was there, and it does exist.
Did your parents ever talk about it after that happened?
Nope.
Yeah.
They my father rarely talked about it. He had to push him to talk about it. My mother, she talked about it a little bit. He had to push her to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And they had the same recollection of it that you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But like I said, I stopped trying to have people to believe me. It's just, I just tell them the story of what happened to me and going from it, because I know what happened. I know that it happened, and it's more in this world than what we see.
Oh, absolutely.
And what is very interesting, if this exists, let me rephrase that, by having this exist, who knows what else is going on?
Right.
And because I've been hearing the stories of people having experiences, and you know, I've been there, so it's just it's a real phenomenon. And for some reason, we're not going to get to the bottom of it until whoever's behind this make it known.
Yeah.
To us.
Yeah, we don't have enough of the puzzle pieces.
Exactly. Like this one movie with Charlie Sheen, The Arrival. You ever seen that movie?
I think so. Yes.
There's one quote from when I think he's an actor. Can't think of his name, but one of the aliens told Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen thought you knew the whole picture of what was going on at the end. He told me you don't even know the half of it.
Yeah.
That's us. We don't even know the half of it.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that.
And that's a very terrifying situation. We think we know, like I said, we don't even know the half of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing this experience.
Well, to sum it up, it was, you know, we wasn't looking for flying saucers. My father had went outside.
Right.
Incinerator. He saw something. He told us to come outside. We went outside. We saw this flying disc. It was lit up. It was levitating. Like it couldn't be no more than 100 feet from us at treetop level. It was moving slowly until it disappeared behind the buildings. Nobody else saw it. Nobody else heard. It didn't make any sounds. It was silent. It wasn't spinning. And
it was just there.
It was just there. Lit up, and it was dark. It was pitch black dark, and it was like it is now outside. And nobody saw anything. And so that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, James.
I guess I didn't see any aliens. Like, you know, I ain't gonna say it's, you know, something I didn't see, but it was something that craft is something that's not supposed to exist.
Right. Right. It's something that shouldn't have been there.
Yes. I guess I don't know if it's from here, and if from here it's some breakaway civilization, they had this fantastic technology that they're not sharing with anybody. And it's just, there's a lot in this world that we don't know nothing about.
Agreed. All right. I hope you enjoyed all of that. As I said, I have a few things I want to read that are pretty neat. There's a group called the Magonia Exchange, and what they do is they collect old newspaper articles about odd Fortiana. And Magonia, of course, coming from Jacques Vallée's book, Passport to Magonia. And Vallée is actually one of the people in the group who occasionally contributes stuff. So the first one I'm going to read is called Star and New Moon at Midday, 1900 Tennessee. Comes from the Sparta Ishmaelite, published in Sparta, Georgia on Friday, August 31st, 1900. An extraordinary phenomenon. Harmony Grove Citizen. It is not often that the sober, steady, industrious citizens of our town see stars in the middle of the day, but on last Tuesday at noon, they saw not only one star, but also the new moon. Just about noon, a passerby would have thought our town was filled with rubbernecks, but it was only the stargazers who were viewing the unusual spectacle of the moon and stars in broad open daylight. A little below the zenith and somewhat toward the western horizon, the new moon and one large bright star could be plainly observed with the naked eye. At first, many were inclined to scoff at the idea of a sober man seeing stars in daylight, but these doubting Thomases were soon convinced by a close scrutiny of the heavens that the moon and a star were clearly to be seen. What caused this strange phenomena? No one seems to know, but true it is that the moon and a star were shining brightly in the heavens at midday. It seems from the above that the mountain dew at Honeygrove is having a wonderful influence on the natives. Now, this is 1900, so we know it's not a drone or anything like that. If they're actually seeing the moon, that's one thing, but maybe they were seeing something more anomalous and just assumed it looked like the moon. Who knows? And, of course, it's dismissed at the end by saying they were drunk, basically. Yeah, gotta love that. The ridicule factor starts early. This next one is from 1839 in Germany. And it says, glowing frogs fall from the sky, and it's translated from German. Toad rain, a very remarkable phenomena, tells the Journal of Chalois, was seen in a piece of land between St. Fever and Hout Mauco. In a perimeter of 30 to 40 meters, a light rain fell, accompanied from a multitude of small toads as small as a little bean. This in itself already a remarkable apparition was accompanied from a no less remarkable fact. Not only did the small creatures smell strongly of sulfur, but it was also noticed that on the same creatures, it was only 8 o'clock in the evening, a phosphorescent glow that only disappeared with the details of the animals. Obviously, that's a translation, but so you had glowing frogs that smelled like sulfur fall from the sky at 8 o'clock at night. That's interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. And we know from Josh's work that sulfur is a very common smell in all of this phenomena. So who knows? And I have one more for you. This coming from the Evening News in Rockhampton, Thursday, the 26th of May, 1932. Mystery gift after cattle losses. Popcorn shower from the sky. Fall of manna. A sensation has been caused in South Africa by a shower of manna on a farm near Vryheld, I think that says, in Natal. You'll have to excuse me. It's not just that these words are unfamiliar, but also it's in a grainy scan of a newspaper article. The circumstances are related by Mr. Botha, a cousin of the great, I really can't tell what that says, Boer leader, I can't tell if that's a B or a D, who awoke one morning to find a patch of wasteland about 700 yards long and 60 feet wide, covered with a white substance resembling snow. Natives were in the midst of it, eating it greedily and stowing it in baskets. They regarded it as heavenly compensation for the destruction of their cattle by drought. Mr. Botha collected some of the substance in a bottle and took it into Vryheld, 18 miles away, for examination. It was identical with that described in Exodus 16, verse 14. And when the dew that lay was gone up, Behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. Verse 16 adds a further description. And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like Horlander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. The samples Mr. Botha produced looked like popcorn, with, here and there, flaky pieces. The color was dead white, without any shine or gloss, and the manna was slightly tough to the touch. The taste was exactly in accordance with the biblical description, pleasantly honey-sweet, and the little balls of manna dissolved on the tongue like icing sugar. The fall of manna was confined to one small spot on Mr. Botha's farm, and on none of the farms nearby did it appear. It has been believed in the past that biblical manna was exuded from the tamarisk tree, but in this case, the substance was found on a treeless area. According to report, a similar fall occurred in 1856 at the time of the battle at the Tugela between Cetewayo and his brother Umbolazia. It is a curious fact that although the oldest natives on Mr. Botha's farm had never before seen manna, they all ate it without hesitation, as though knowing instinctively that it was food which would do them no harm. That definitely counts as a strange story. 1932. I don't totally know what to make of it. The fact that people just ran out and ate it is I think the strangest part of that story. Who knows what it really was, but it's definitely interesting. All right. Remember, if you have any stories, you can send them to stories@wheredidtheroadgo.com. We can have you on to talk about them, or we can just read them on the air in a listener story show. Completely up to you. We will see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.